when you don't know what makes wealth, then you're always afraid. And when I was in the state legislature in the 1970s, we were told we were going to run out of natural gas. In fact, the President of the United States went on television and wore his little sweater and things in front of the fireplace. And he told us that we were all going to run out. And so immediately, because there was an ice age coming upon us, we were entering this ice age, and that the armadillo used to be in Montana, up along the Canadian border in Minnesota and things, but now it's down in Texas and things because of this global freezing that's coming upon us. You can go back and Google the new ice age, and you'll see the cover of Newsweek and Time magazines talking about the ice age coming, and how that Henry Cabot was able to sail up into Hudson Bay, but now how it's been frozen over for the last 100 years and all these things. And so one of the things that they decided was to shut off natural gas to anybody other than grandma. That is, if you used it for a business, a corporation, and they shut off the natural gas to one of those dirty corporations, and it could only be used for residential uses because it was in such short supply. Some people were even wasting it by having, some whole towns had decorative lights. We had these gas lights along the streets, and so they turned those off. In this state, there were 24 acres under glass. Back in those days, they didn't fly flowers in from Mexico and things. They actually had hot houses, and they would grow them all year round. And they came up to those folks and said, you know, we're really sorry. Boom. They turned off their natural gas like that. Didn't give them even 6 weeks or a month to convert over to some other, and they lost their inventory. Families that 2 and 3 generations were just wiped out totally because we were in a crisis. we're going to freeze to death. And next Tuesday a week, we got to get at it right now. And so there were 11 of us in Columbus. There were 11 of us that voted against it because we didn't think we were actually in that big of a crisis. But nevertheless, they're always, these folks on the left who don't know how to provide jobs, they don't know how to generate wealth, they're always afraid. And fear has torments. And so if you listen to them, if you watch them every day on the television, they'll frighten you to death. The fact is, we're living in a golden age of mankind. It's the greatest time ever to be alive, but nevertheless, they can frighten us forever. And so in the 1970s, we're going to run out of natural gas, and we're all going to freeze to death. Now, that's 78, 88, 98, 2008. We have categories for storage, like natural gas. We have 1 to 25 years, 1 to 50 years, 50 to 75 years, and 100 plus. Well, we now, natural gas is in the 100 plus range, 100 years plus, because we have unlimited supplies of natural gas. So that doesn't discourage them, because they said, well, that didn't work, we're all going to burn up. And so now we're all on the edge of global warming, in which we're all going to roast. And so let me just take a quick little observation here. This is what John Coleman, founder of the Weather Channel, he made an observation. He said, you know, it's just simply not true. It's not happening. Worldwide, there was a significant natural warming trend in the 1980s and 90s as a solar cycle peaked with lots of sunspots and solar flares. But that ended in 1998. Now they have these models in which they go back 50 million years and 800 million years and all these other kinds of things, and that could prove anything you want, because thermometers weren't very good 2 million years ago. So they can make that story. But in 1998, they did have thermometers. In 1999 and 2000 and 2001, and now you can measure it and you can see whether or not it's getting hotter or colder, and it's actually getting cooler. In fact, this year we had fewer days in North America. We had fewer days over 90 than any year since 1930. So you would think people would be embarrassed. Well, not really. It says the sun has gone quiet with fewer and fewer sunspots, and the global temperature have now gone into decline. Earth has cooled for almost 10 straight years. So I asked Al Gore, where's the global warming? Well, the cooling trend is so strong that recently the head of the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change had to acknowledge it. He speculated that nature, figured it out, has temporarily overwhelmed mankind's warming. Nature came up and smacked it up, and in the 10 years, it will be 10 years or so before the warming returns, because it's on its march. Now, get it, really. We're supposed to be in a panic about man-made global warming, and the whole thing takes a 10-year break because of the lack of sunspots. If it weren't so serious, it would be absolutely laughable. Now, here's the facts. Here's the deal about CO2. Carbon dioxide is a natural component of our atmosphere. It's been there since time began. It's absorbed and emitted by the oceans. It's used by every living plant to trigger photosynthesis. Nothing would be green without it. And we humans, we create it. Every time we breathe out, we emit carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. It's not a pollutant. It is not a smog. It's a naturally occurring invisible gas. And along the Appalachian spine, it creates a lot, and we call it the Smoky Mountains. Not because they didn't have catalytic converters on the wagons when they were coming across, but because the trees actually make the carbon dioxide. So Dr. Willie Soon was a fellow that he said, you know, if there is an increase in temperature, then we could track the carbon dioxide and see the temperatures go up. Or if we look at what's going on with the sunspots, we'll see what's going. And so Willie took the solar activity, and lo and behold, look what's happening. When the solar activity goes up, it goes up, and then look at in between the 1960s and 70s and 80s, see that going down there? That's where I just told you about. That's when we're all going to freeze to death, right there. See, if you just kept on going down, we're all going to have an ice age. But lo and behold, it turned around and went back. And now we're going up at the top. Now we're all going to burn up. But the fact is that there's a direct correlation. Now look at this. See, the temperature and the sunspots go directly the same. They're side by side. Look at carbon dioxide at the bottom. It really doesn't have any correlation. But over the last few years, carbon dioxide going up and sunspots going up makes the temperature go up. Now, let me just tell you how much we're talking about. That chart looks like it's doing something. We're talking 1/10 of 1%. I mean, you talk about being anal. This is one of this. We're talking nothing here. But if you'll notice at the very tail end, see, it just happens to overlap at the moment. And so by overlapping at the moment, the temperatures actually follow the sunspot, but because it's got carbon dioxide in there, these guys are going to make a bundle trying to scare us all to death and going through it. Now there is the temperature over the last since the time of Christ. And since the time of Christ, it's gone up and down, and in fact, it's not as warm now as it was in the warmest time, but as you mentioned, we've just come out of a cold period over the whole thing, and quite frankly, let me just give you this little story here. That is that, do you want to know how many? Let me give you a quick fact here. Let me give you a quick little fact here, just so that you know. And I want to say this for young people's benefit, because you know I hate to sound like an old man, but when you've gone through it, you don't get as all shook up when you've been through it before. And I want you young people, especially those of you in your 20s or so, and you go to college and you hear all this stuff, I just want you to write it down. And remember this experience. When everybody's talking about how we're all going to burn up and you need to increase the taxes, we need to have a fuel tax, and we need to have a carbon tax, and we need to have all these taxes so these politicians can save the planet, and it's going to be for a noble cause. How they sell this stuff is beyond me. Okay, so they're going to be doing this, but let me tell you, it's all going to fall apart very shortly, because truth always wins out eventually. And so about 20 years from now, your children are going to come home from school. And there's going to be some great horrendous crisis that their professors have been telling them and their school teachers have been, how the whole world's going to come to an end next week. And I don't know what it's going to be. You know, it's going to be a lack of water, or it's going to be, you know, the ants are going to eat the birds or something. I mean, there's going to be something going on. And what you need to do is just smile and tap them on the forehead and go with it, because there will, nervous Nelly will always be around, and the sky will always be falling for some people somewhere, sometime. But that's the greatness about understanding truth and understanding facts, and that is that we need not be fearful of the future. We live in a time in which, as we look forward, when I say this, you're going to pretty much agree with me, but I want to follow it up further. The more information people share with each other, the more knowledge that is increased.